Hey, welcome to another episode of Strive 365, where we help and guide you to live a better life, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, personally, or professionally. I'm your host, Justin Arnold, and we have a very special guest on today's episode. We have Daniel Spencer. He's a good friend of mine, but he's also the co-founder of Saluz, and that's a company that focuses on connecting people to the healing power of nature. And if you've done any listening to my podcast or reading my books, you know my love for nature, and that's why I had to have this guy on, because not only is he striving personally, professionally, he's helping others do that as well. So Daniel, why don't you give a little intro about yourself?
Right on, man. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been, we've known each other for a few years now, and it's been nice to get to know you much closer as you've been taking the product and experiencing the product. My background is I've always been into health and wellness, always trying to figure out how to maximize our human potential. And originally it started with the physical side, from sports and movements. And, along the way, I learned about had some injuries. So that was part of the learning process as well, and learning more about how to heal the body and trusting that the body can heal itself. Mm-hmm. And later that brought me down to Mexico to pursue more of a lifestyle that aligned with my personality and my beliefs of getting deeper into nature and connecting to nature and trusting that nature has all the tools that we need. And so literally just getting more focused on the intelligence of nature. And so I went to Mexico, and it was an opportunity to create a new identity, living in California. I had, I was fit into a box of like a handstand guy or a fitness guy, and going to a new country. And I had an opportunity to write a new chapter in my book. So, that's kind of a little bit about my interest and passion. And along that way, I just started learning about natural medicine. It was a natural progression, learning from the physical side, the natural movement to the natural medicine, and how we can maximize our potential from the inside. And there's so much out there, and there's a lot of wisdom that I feel most people have forgotten about. And I just want to help bring that back to people and share that with people.
Man, so many good things you said there. And yeah, that's where I actually met him a few years ago in Mexico. We hit it off right away. But you mentioned natural medicine, and that's one of the things that attracted me to this guy and just his philosophy. And if you were listening, you heard a lot about nature and natural medicine. And while I do go to doctors, I do believe nature has provided everything that we truly need. And our body has an amazing ability to heal itself, and especially coupled with nature. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about Saluz, how it got started, and a little bit of that.
Sure. Yeah. Saluz is just an extension of where I was already at with my own experience. And when I was teaching people, is like you said, the body is strong enough to take care, to heal itself when it's put in the right environments. So
right environments.
What I was teaching people was about handstands, and what I like teaching people about with handstands was not just getting people to do handstands for the sake of it, but the journey that they get when they learn a handstand, for instance, the trust they have to go through, the challenges, the mental struggles they have to face, because most people don't think they're strong enough, right? And so if I could put somebody in a position where they're strong and they can actually learn to trust their inner guidance, then as a coach, I'm able to empower them to when they leave, that session, they're going to take that awareness and that empowerment and take that into other parts of their life. So Saluz its origins are based upon giving people the opportunity to thrive. And so the way we do that is through micronutrients, because 92% of people are micronutrient deficient. And
say that one more time. How many?
92% of people are micronutrient deficient.
92%. Wow. Go on.
And
sorry,
get this.
I knew it was high. I didn't realize that was the number.
Yeah. And so micronutrient deficiency leads to chronic diseases. And 1 in 4 people have a chronic disease.
Yeah, that's true.
And 6 out of 10 have 2 or more. So it's the foundation of our health. It's like everybody's trying to biohack their health and trying to get their mitochondria as a charge, and all that, which is great. But if you don't take care of your foundation, then what are you building on? And so once I started diving deeper into the micronutrients and the soils and the minerals and all these other amazing herbs that have been around for billions of years, I started to okay, this is what people need to be ingesting more of and learning more about rather than the next fad or the next wave or, of information. So let's go back to the roots and what's been trusted and worked upon in the past, and let's build upon that.
I love that. And I love that you actually used our podcast name by accident, maybe on purpose, but giving people the opportunity to thrive. And I think that's the best thing is, yes, we bring people on here that are thriving, but we also bring people on here that are helping others to thrive. And you probably just blew some people's minds with some of the numbers you threw out, like the 92% micronutrient deficient. We do know about some of the other stats you threw out there, but it just shows, why this is important. And I use several of his products. And I want to clarify in case this isn't a supplement, correct? This is nutrients. This is food, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a food. So if you think about the story of algae, I think what's a lot of people say, oh, algae, yeah, that's cool. No. Algae is the reason we're here. The reason we're having this conversation. This particular species of algae, which it's short for AFA, which it translates to Aphanizomenon floss aqua, which literally translates to invisible flower of the water. It absorbed carbon dioxide.
I just love that. Sorry.
Billions of years ago to create oxygen on the planet, to create life. It's the first organism on our planet. It's the fastest regenerating organism on the planet. And so when you're ingesting that kind of intelligence into your body is getting all those nutrients and it's able to function at a higher capacity.
Yeah, and that's something I noticed. I think when I first started taking it, man, I don't even know how long ago is this. It's been a minute, but I believe, I know the first thing I messaged you was like, man, one was energy, two was my gut. Like for those that don't know, I have no appendix and I was told I'd be fine. It's an organ's not needed, but now we know how important the appendix is at regulating gut bacteria. And we all know how important gut bacteria is. And we're learning more and more every day about the hormones and the gut and how important it is. And I'm going to go down that right now. But the point is, I've always tried to find different ways to maximize because I've tried different diets and all these different things. And one of the things that I noticed right away was just, wow, from less gas to better energy to felt like better absorption of nutrients. And just, I've been taking it a couple times a day, like 1 teaspoon before workout and 1 teaspoon middle of the day, like when, I'm starting to feel a decline, and it's done wonders for me. And I'm taking a few other things from him. I like that he's got tinctures and, like things like cordyceps and lion's manes and mushroom supplements that really help out. And we're talking about the legal mushrooms here. I'm talking about the psychedelics, just to be clear. But it's been great. So it's been a great journey for me, and so I highly recommend it for other people as well. But yeah, and like you said, it's a food product, and you notice that you're getting your nutrients in. And for somebody like me, I get tested regularly. For example, I had an appendectomy, so a couple years ago, and for those, I'm 42, which is usually earlier, but I was having some issues after I came back from the DR, and I've talked a little bit about this on the podcast. And I find out all the time that now this nutrient, like from that one, it was like, well, now my body doesn't have the bacteria to really break down sugars. So when I can find things like this, and this has been a game changer for me to help me, get higher nutrients, like you mentioned, but also better absorb nutrients and just have better gut flora. And again, the pre-workout Apple Element, that's not one of these that's, man, I used to be a heavy supplement guy, and I've been in fitness for almost 20 years. I was doing some of these like C4 type things, and I was wondering why they're always messing me up, and they're giving me a crash right after. Like I feel sustained energy, endurance, and things like that since doing this. So, man, it's been great. Anything else you want to share about that before we pivot a little bit?
No, I mean, yeah, it is a food, and that's the thing is like people like have a supplement, they already have an idea of what a supplement is. It's usually made in a lab, people in white coats, and it's a magic powder that may show up to your door and you have no idea where it comes from. But what we have here is a food, and it's a food. It's the first food on the planet. It's the first protein. It created antioxidants. So it has the full spectrum of amino acids. It has minerals. It has vitamins. It has chlorophyll. And so it literally has the building blocks for cellular health. And you think about building up the cells, building up one cell at a time, trillions upon trillions of cells. Now you're giving your body a foundation of nutrients that it's probably never had before. And what makes this product unique is because of the location. So I'm located in Southern Oregon. And so part of the journey for me was to leave my life in Mexico, to write a new chapter and move to Oregon where we harvest the algae. So I'm talking to you right now in the house of the guy that's been harvesting this algae for 25 years.
Yeah, and I shared a little video on my story on Instagram about this. If you didn't catch it, I think it's still up there. Go and check it out. And that's, if you don't know my Instagram handle, it's at Justin Arnold with an E-N. Two other things I want to mention on that: color and taste. I forgot to mention those. It's got a cool color. Like when you mix it just in water. It by itself is cool. It's just, I love stuff like that. It's visually appealing. And taste. You and I have talked about this, but the taste, when you look at it, to me, it might I imagine it reminding people to like some of those like green powder, some of those veggie powders and stuff like that. And they taste like alfalfa, in my opinion. This doesn't. This tastes really good by itself. You can mix it with stuff. I've mixed it with other things as well, like cold teas and stuff like that. Oh, and you don't want to have it warm, right? You don't want to heat it up or anything, or... Right?
No.
Correct?
So I just want to talk a little bit more about the harvesting process and then talk a little bit about the colors.
Yeah.
So when we harvest it and we can only harvest it typically around a full moon because the algae needs light. And so it's really important to have that extra light from the full moon, because you think about it, the algae is in this water and it's absorbing all the light spectrum. So it's absorbing the moon rays and sun rays throughout the day, 365 days a year, and it peaks when there's no wind and it has the right amount of light, which is just the end of summer. And so it needs that extra bit of light, and it needs the calmer temperatures as it's transitioning into fall for it to really come to the surface. And so it's not like you can just harvest it every day. Like it's frozen right now. I'm looking at the lake right now and it's frozen. So what that means is the algae is kind of going dormant and hibernating. So it's hibernating. The spores are still alive, but they're just hibernated. And part of that process is it's an adaptogen, which means that the organism has to adapt to the environment, right? So in that process of adaptation, it's creating new antioxidants. It's creating new protective mechanisms to keep it alive during this harsh environment of the extreme heat and the extreme cold. And it's been doing this for 3.5 billion years. It's survived all the ice ages, all the extreme heats that we've talked about, we've learned about. And what makes this product so unique is the minerals. So the story is, if your viewers know about Crater Lake, it was a volcano 8,000 years ago. The original name was called Mount Mazama, and it was one of the highest peaks on all of the West Coast. So when it imploded and it's been dusted this whole valley full of volcanic minerals. The explosion was so big, there's been traces of it all the way into Greenland.
Wow.
So that's how big of an explosion this was in this catalytic environment, event for the Earth. And so the lake, it used to be 100 feet deep and it used to be 100 feet wide. It was called Modoc Lake.
Yeah.
And when it erupted, the whole basin's filled with minerals. So guess what? The lake's only 9 feet deep. And then the lake's only so all this whole basin is filled with volcanic minerals. So it's full of life. And like the animals here are bigger. Like the trout are like 32 inches. The deer are huge. The cows are amazing. They're eating nutrient-rich, they're in a nutrient-rich environment. The pelicans are enormous. So everything around this environment is so unique, and it's a magical place, and I can't wait for everybody to come check it out, because it's important to see where it comes from.
Man, this is amazing. This is just cool. This fascinates me, just this story shares and the things you're sharing about this and your energy and your passion for it. But something you mentioned there, it's like, since I just got a reorder that you just sent me, and I've upped and been really consistent about at least twice a day, and then taking the mushroom tinctures, I've actually gained like 10 pounds of lean muscle, and I haven't really changed a whole lot. And my wife is like, your arms are looking bigger. Maybe that's why. I don't know, but it's fascinating that you said that, because I'm very active, as you know. Like I play hockey. I'm a trainer. I'm a gym owner. I'm very active with my kids. I coach hockey. I don't know how many calories I'm burning through, but to try to sustain and actually gain has always been a challenge. But over the last, I don't know, month or so, I've gained 10 or so pounds of lean muscle, and I've been pretty consistent around my weight that I was at prior to gaining for, I don't know, 5-6 years or so. And all of a sudden now I've had this boost. And you mentioned immune system, and I'll say this, like, even if I feel a little like slight cough, I've got kids, I'm in a gym, I'll up the ante on them, like, and then the next day I'm back to normal. It's the coolest thing that I find fascinating. And I'm 42, and again, I'll share why that's such a big deal to me. One, nobody wants to be sick, but it's a big deal to me because when I had my appendix taken out, I'm coming back to that again, is I was getting stomach bugs and I was getting sick all the time. Prior to getting my appendix out, I was never sick, and I rarely sick. And all of a sudden, boom, I couldn't get healthy. And I was being told to eat yogurt, and just at the time people were helping, but it was all poor advice. And so I share this because it's really at 42 where, you're expected to not have that great of immune system in our societal eyes, but there are ways. And I don't want to tribute continue. I do a lot of other things like sleep and meditate and manage stress and cold bath. So I'm sure all of it is contributing, but I'm telling you what, in the last month, I have noticed a definitely consistent and change with that. So thank you. And thanks for sharing all that. That was pretty cool.
So you're welcome.
So one of the cool things is,
let me just talk about the colors.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Right? No. So that's amazing that you've gained 10 pounds of muscle, and like you didn't eat more protein powder. You didn't do anything else. It's like your body is adapting to the environment you're giving it. You're asking more of it.
That's crazy.
What you're doing is demanding.
Yeah, I briefly added. Calories are probably the same, but yeah, maybe I'm doing a little bit more meat than veggies or something, but not drastically different to gain that much is what I'm getting at. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and it's another thing I've noticed too, because I'm on the road, so it's perfect for me. Like I don't pull over and get a salad or something like that. I'm not getting my greens like I say you're supposed to. Mm-hmm. But I'm taking the algae every day, and I don't crave the greens. Like before taking the algae, before ingesting the algae every day, it was like craving greens. Like we go backpacking, you're in an environment and you're eating this food, but you're still craving greens. But I'm not craving greens because I'm getting the nutrients from a deeper nutritional source than I can get.
And that's why I tell everybody, my clients, your body's not necessarily craving calories, it's craving nutrients. If it's getting nutrients that it needs, then it's not going to have, it's a reason why, like when you go to a fast food restaurant that's heavily processed, why you're hungry an hour later, or you're craving sugars, you're craving salt or sweet, or you have some craving, right? Because they're not carrying very much nutrients, and the nutrients that they're carrying are low amount or poor. So when you have something of high nutrient value, you're not having these cravings, and that's so for people that do have like what they might claim food addictions or cravings, this would be a great addition to it as well, I believe. So yeah, we call that hidden hunger, and you nailed it exactly. It's basically you're eating food, but it doesn't have the nutrients. So your body's like, well, I need nutrients. So I'm so hungry. I'm hungry for nutrients. I'm not hungry for calories. Yeah. And so when you give your body, that's another thing people notice too, is when they start taking a product, there's so many nutrients that are actually like, I'm not hungry anymore, or the cravings change, because a lot of these cravings are because they're deficient in certain minerals and nutrients. And we don't need to go get a test to figure out which ones they are. Let's give the body all the nutrients it needs. The body needs 90 nutrients a day just to function. Whether you're an athlete, obviously you're an athlete, you need more. But if you're just, somebody who sits on the couch and watches, TV and eats bonbons, you still need about 90 nutrients a day just for the body to function optimally. And our product has over 200 nutrients, micronutrients. So you're literally, you're filling up your health bank account full of nutrients. Rather than living from a deficient state where you can't withdraw anything more, that's where the chronic diseases are happening, because your body's like pulling from something that's not there. Now you're giving a surplus of these nutrients, so you have what you need to survive and thrive. Awesome. You were going to talk about the color.
Yeah, so the color is unique. So everybody that I drove around. I did a road trip from Oregon to Texas, and ended up putting on around 10,000 miles in the last quarter of the year. And everywhere I would go, I would talk about the product, and then I would mix a sample in front of people. And so when you look at the product and you actually mix it for the first time, you're going to see the colors. And everybody's like, the colors, I love the colors. Well, the colors are unique. Yes, there's green, which is chlorophyll. It has the highest amount of chlorophyll, which is one of the reasons why your gut was feeling better, because you had more chlorophyll to cleanse the gut lining. Yes. you have more energy now because the chlorophyll is actually oxygenating the blood. And so now you're building up your blood. And so we have the highest amount of chlorophyll. It's called divinylchlorophyll. And then the blue pigment is called phycocyanin. And this is the first pigment of blue because what happened was the photons from the sun had to, the algae absorbed the photons from the sun and reflected the blue light. And that blue light is the antioxidant. It's called phycocyanin. And it's a rare blue that there's no other blue like it on the planet.
Oh, wow. It's gorgeous.
And so it has the greens, the blues, and then it has a little bit of orange, which is beta carotene. And so that's the most absorbable form of beta carotenes. Like if you were to get a synthetic form of beta carotene, your body's probably going to release most of it into your urine. And that's where you get the yellow colors. So it literally has the nutrients that our bodies need to thrive, and it's fun. You can actually, like, one of the things we've been playing around with is just like mixing it and doing like watercolor with it. So with your kids, you can start to kind of like play around with different color spectrums and do some watercolor with it. You don't need much of it because it's so, it's so concentrated as far as the colors go. And so,
that's really cool.
So it's a pretty amazing process. And if you think about it, it's photosynthesized from the energy from the sun. So you're literally absorbing light energy from the sun. And everybody's all about this red light spectrums and absorbing red light, which is amazing. But this is the original red light spectrum, right? So the algae absorbs the red light, it absorbs the blue light, and it absorbs the green light. And so that's where the colors come from.
Oh, it's really interesting. And so you mentioned kids as far as watercolors, but anybody can take this, right? Like kids can take it. Yeah. I know that, but I wanted,
Yeah, with kids, again, so the thing about this product, it's such a powerful detoxifier because of the minerals. So the minerals from the volcano, you're getting deep earth minerals, and they're chelated, meaning they're connected to the vitamins. So what's happening is you're bringing nutrients into the cell and you're pulling toxins out of the cell. And while you're pulling toxins out of the cell, the body gets overwhelmed with some of the toxins. And so that's when some people have a negative experience initially, but it's actually a good thing because you're getting the toxins out of your body. And so people just are not comfortable being uncomfortable. So that's when they're like, oh, this made me sick. It's like, well, no, your body's actually pulling out toxins, which is what it's supposed to do.
That's incredible. On a side note,
yes, it is safe for kids. We have lots of my friends. So going back to kids, my friend, her son, he's been taking it for like 6 months now, and his teachers are like, oh my gosh, he's totally changed. He's focusing. He's more polite in school. He's making friends everywhere.
More
and
polite.
Then two.
So would you say? Yeah. So what would you attribute that to? How would I say that?
I think he's more aware of his environment, and he's like his body. So the reason why our personalities come out in like a negative way is because we're coming from a survival state, right? Our needs are not met. Our 3 needs are not met. Our nourishment's not met, or maybe our community's not met, or maybe our surrounding our house is not met. We don't have security there. So I attribute it to just getting his body out of a survival state of trying to function with a lack of nutrients, and actually having the nutrients it needs. So now it can be calmer and more relaxed, and he's sleeping better. He actually had problems with some cholesterol and digestion, and that's been cleaning up. But what I want to talk about with her is, so she her first pregnancy, she wasn't producing enough milk with her child, this child. And so she had to, unfortunately, find other resources. And on top of it, she's vegan, which I'm not saying anything bad about veganism, but then, there's a difference of nutrients that they're ingesting.
Yeah, you're not getting everything you need, typically.
A lot of the fats and stuff, which are good for the brain. But that's not the conversation we're having here. But what's unique is she started taking our product, and during her pregnancy, she started to feel better. She actually, her baby weight was much healthier, and now she's able to produce more milk than she ever had before. So now she's able to freeze her milk. She's able to give her kid all the nutrients it needs because she's no longer looking at from an external source, like a synthetic source. She's giving it pure breast milk.
I would love to see the long-term result of that. That would be really cool. You talk about like sleeping better, doing better, thinking better. I recently I've listened to and then read about the effects of nutrient density and positive gut health as it pertains to ADHD. And obviously that's important to me because I grew up being diagnosed, medicated, decided not to use it. And I've always, in my adulthood, have navigated around it. And I've looked at it as more of a superpower, can harness it. And I've noticed, when I started eating better and more nutrient dense foods and getting my nutrition in check, how it's just easier to focus, obviously easier to sleep. And these are things I teach my clients. So it's really neat. I'm not saying I'm not going to claim it's a cure for ADHD, but I will say that it helps out the gut. And we know when the gut is functioning better, it can really help with people that are suffering from things like this. So, and I don't like to use the word suffering, but may have, because
experiencing,
experiencing is a better word because I experience it and I was diagnosed with it. And for the longest time, I was made to think something was wrong and it was a learning disability, but I realized this is like a superpower when you learn to harness it and when you learn to what you really have and how your brain's operating. But that's again another conversation, but I just wanted to share that. Again, I didn't say this will help out with ADHD, but it might be something that helps out with the gut, which and therefore might help out with that because it has done that for me. So, man, that's just incredible. We spent a lot of time on it, but purposely so. That was really cool. But there's a lot of other fascinating things about this guy. For example, before, and correct me if I'm wrong, but before you, before you came up with Saluz, you guys were going to make a film. Like you pivoted, correct? Yeah, I just think that's fascinating. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that. So,
Sure. I just want to touch briefly on ADHD because there is a really good book and resource that we've been digesting. It's been our kind of Bible, Algae Bible. It's called Algae to the Rescue. We're currently working on a second edition. This author, he's a chemistry professor, and he wrote a book on ADHD in kids, actually. Oh, okay. And so we've been digesting that, and there's a part on our website where we talk about ADHD and how it helps people with that.
Oh, neat.
And again, it comes down to nutrients, right? The reason why maybe you were diagnosed with ADHD is because your body was lacking certain nutrients. Maybe it was certain minerals, maybe it was amino acids for your brain, maybe you didn't have enough dopamine, serotonin running through your body and your life.
That's all interesting,
to kind of ground everything and give you that, that support that you needed to put yourself in the position where you could, could think clearly.
That. Yeah.
And so one of the things that attention span is a big one right now. And unfortunately, we're in a swipe society right now where everybody's swiping up and swiping left.
Yeah.
But the thing about taking our product and giving your brain the nutrition it needs, you're actually able to focus a lot longer. Be able to, increase your focus and learn things at a much faster rate because you're more interested and you're more excited about learning them. And so like for me, I'm studying about chemistry and biology and microbiology and absorbing the information as opposed to in school, you learn just enough to memorize it for the test and you forget it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about figuring out which nutrient it is that's doing that and then isolating that and maximizing and taking more of that. It's about giving your body everything that it needs. And so, check out the website because we've done tons of research on it. And literally we have sections on our site where you could be like, okay, well, I've been diagnosed with, type 2 diabetes or whatever. How can this help my body? And so we've written an article about that and the nutrients that will help support it. Like for instance, there's a rare earth mineral called vanadium, and it comes from the center of the earth. And so how many people are getting vanadium daily in their diet?
I bet many people haven't even heard of it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so every day you drink this product, you're giving your body vanadium. The body have receptors for all these nutrients, but we're not giving it the nutrients that it needs.
Yeah.
So we're working from a state of lack, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's so unique about it is you're giving your body like the nutrients that it needs. It's evolved from it. It's acquiring. And so when you actually give it, it's like, oh, thank you. I don't need to pull from, my calcium storage in my bones because I'm getting, I'm getting the right ratio of magnesium and zinc. And so no longer we have the issue of struggling with that.
That right there, you're sharing such great nuggets. People don't realize that. And it's something we haven't talked about is just how when you're not getting it, your body's going to find it and it's going to pull from different parts, which could weaken those different parts of your body. And that's why it's not about food. It's not about calories. It's about nutrients and quality nutrients, which, man, I just wanted to say thank you and that you're sharing some nuggets here. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm here to we're here to share and educate, and so that way people can join the party. We're just trying to create a tribe of people that are want to live the best, want to be as healthy as possible, and want to inspire other people to do that, along the way. And we just want to power them with our products.
Yeah, and for sure. Like, we'll put the website link in. I'll even put a little discount code down there for you guys to save a little money for the first time you're around there as well. So you'll see all that in the show notes. But yeah, man, let's talk about your film career, or
for sure.
Potentially making a film right before this. I just think that's an interesting and cool pivot.
So I'm not a document storyteller. I didn't have a history of filmmaking or anything like that, but I was exposed to that type of lifestyle and learning, and it just really intrigued me. I just love telling stories through media, through cameras, through story, and through the words. And I was fortunate enough to meet. There's a saying that I think is very fitting here that needs to be prefaced is. When the student is ready, the mentor shows up, right? So whenever you're ready for something, the right person shows up in your life and brings you along and teaches you what you want to learn. So I had the actual passion to want to learn more about filmmaking and storytelling and being a part of the whole media process, with the overall goal to inspire people, right? The whole goal is to be able to reach more people and inspire people. Because for me to teach one person one-on-one and share information with that, it's not as much of a value as if I could talk to 10 people or 20 people. And now if you get in front of people and you have like we have a podcast now, so now you can reach a lot more people as opposed to us having this conversation on the phone, right? So using the ability to tell stories and create more inspiration through the technology that was available was very important for me. And so I met my business partner, Darren, and he's got an amazing history of document storytelling. He used to have his own TV show, Canadian broadcast show, where he'd go around and interview athletes and ask them these questions. And so he's a great orator, and he's a great storyteller, and he's a great visionary. And so I was fortunate enough to learn from him. And I got to literally have like a mentorship with, one of the best person in the environment, in the area, the most experienced, and just say yes and just learn and fail and keep showing up and just because I wanted to be a part of that environment, and I just enjoyed the whole process of it, and I wanted to share these stories. And so the story that we were going to tell was about an environmental association down in Mexico, and it's called Ser Su Voz, which is be your voice. And this woman who started the organization, she was going around and rescuing parrots in cages. And so the whole thing was these parrots, in Mexico, everybody puts a parrot in a cage. I think it's cute, and they probably want a cracker.
Yeah.
But they don't realize the psychological damage that's happening to these parrots.
Wow.
One, they're trimming their wings, and so they no longer have the ability to fly and move. And then two, they're in a cage and psychological, and they live for like 60 years. And they don't have a social environment. They don't have another bird in their environment. So they're very, very mentally and psychologically damaged.
Oh, wow.
And so this woman was going around and trying to free the parrots from these cages. So then the parrots could run wild in the environment. So the parrots are the gardeners of this environment. And so in the city where I was living, in this village, there was a lot of development. And with development comes, a lack of nature, right? So they're basically exchanging nature for development, so people can have nice fancy houses and more people can come there. And these parrots were the ones that were suffering because they were in the environment. So then we were no longer having the influx of trees, and so the whole ecosystem was out of balance.
Yeah.
And so we were going to tell stories of people doing amazing things for the environment, they were resonating with the environment. So with environmental resonance versus environmental dissonance. And in the process, we started doing beach cleanups, and we started doing these own things. And we started to notice that why are more people not joining us in the beach cleanups? Why are people not able to see a future threat? Humans are not wired for a future threat. We're wired for what the immediate future is, what's happening now. As opposed to so for instance, my example is a piece of trash on a beach. Oh, unfortunately, that's unfortunate, but most people don't have the the cognition to actually think, oh, I'm going to pick up that piece of trash because that piece of trash could go in the ocean, and then that ocean, and then the ocean, the fish eat it, and then blah, blah, blah. And then now we have microplastics in our fish. So I was quite fascinated that nobody would help us in these beach cleanups, like in September, that's when all the rivers open up and there's whole areas fed with all this water, and all the trash is literally, is around the riverbeds. And so this trash goes into the ocean. And so my business, Darren and I, we walked around and we picked up bags and bags of trash, and no one helped us. And then we took the trash, we put it in the plaza, and people looked at us like, what are these crazy gringos doing? Like, what are they doing? And so we're like, this is interesting, because we're really curious about the human experience and what wires people. And so I connected it to the fact of survival. People are in a survival state. If their bodies are not in a healthy state, then they don't have the energy, or they don't have the awareness to think about something outside of themselves, to care for something outside of themselves. So that's when I was like, okay, Darren, we're doing this environmental film, but is anybody going to do something from this film if they don't have the internal support? The internal environment is prepared. And so that's when I was like, we need to get people to start taking these nourishments. They need to nourish their bodies. So then when we do this environmental film, people are actually ready to make a change. And so that was the big shift. And so we decided to go from environmentalism to humanism. So then, and tie in what we're doing with Saluz back to the environment. So it always comes back to environment. That's our root. That's where we started. And the company was originated in 2020. We were fortunate enough to be surrounded by deep nature in mangroves in Mexico, paddleboarding around. There's crocodiles, there's amazing birds. And we were just able to fully connect into nature, into that environment, and be like, more people need this in their lives, more people need this. And so I know this is a long-winded story, but it comes into conclusion, the fact of I was leading these retreats, and what people would come to retreat for to learn from me, I couldn't offer as much as the environment that could offer to them. Yeah. So it wasn't about coming to learn from Daniel. It was about coming and being immersed in nature and letting nature give you everything you need, where you don't have to worry about your food. You don't have to worry about where you're sleeping. All you have to do is just connect to the community, and you have a chance to really feel your potential and maximize your potential.
That's really interesting. I just think it's cool. So you talked about the idea, and maybe I missed it, but did you talk about how you guys named Saluz?
So the name Saluz actually is a new word. It's related upon two words in Latin America. So salud or saludium is health, and luz is light. So when you connect the two, we're the light of health.
Nice. Well, you've talked about.
And so you think about the algae. The algae is absorbing the light. Yeah. And you bring that algae into your body, you're creating the light. That just
reminded me. When you were describing. This till not when you I just think this is fascinating when you're describing like the harvesting of blue algae. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of so we go to Niagara on the Lake ever so often. Totally off subject, but this is a cool story. Ice wine, and you're familiar in Canada. Yeah, ice wine is a big thing in Canada, but it can only be they harvest the grapes at night. It has to be a certain temperature and a certain time of year. I want to say like early February or something. Again, you guys can look that up. But it comes out with ice wine, which can only be uniquely done and the best apparently is like in the Niagara on the Lake area in Canada. So in a certain area at a certain time of night, like I think midnight even, and they're waking up doing this, and at a certain temperature and a certain everything. Like everything has to go be just right to pick these grapes, to harvest it, to make the ice wine, which is in these like small bottles that are ridiculously expensive. But anyways, it to really get a great product and a unique thing, it has to be specific, and that's what it reminded me of. So, man,
let's do it, man. That's what you just said is the kind of experience I want to go with the camera. I want to go talk to the people that have been making ice wine for 50 years, and I want to tell their story. Yeah, because I want to connect people to ice wine and be like, okay, this is the people that actually make your ice wine, and when you bring this into your body, you're connecting to the product, you're connecting to the people that are touching it, and you're going to experience it, you're going to appreciate it even more. And that's what we want to do, is we want to connect people to the healing power of nature through our stories and through our media.
I don't know about everyone listening, but I'm fascinated about the stories behind, like when we first tasted ice wine when we went there years ago, and the story and the way they shared the history of it and like how they do it and how the specific small family owned farm that we went to go try, that was more fascinating. I'm sure my wife was in it, but she was definitely more probably into drinking the actual wine, but love you, honey. But it's just the story behind it. When you know where stuff come from and when you hear a passion behind it, like somebody like yourself, and you know more about it, that connects you to it so much deeper. And to really know where it comes from, how it's done, how it's harvested, to know all the history, to know all the nutrients, to know how it's benefiting you and all that, I just think is super fascinating and super, super cool. So anyways, that's what it made me think of.
No. That's the root. And I think that's the biggest thing that people are lacking in their world right now, in their environment. It's a connection. So connection to people, but connection to their bodies, right? So that's another thing too, is that our algae helps connect you to your bodies, help connect you to your cravings, help connect you to your thoughts, help to connect to what you really need, right?
You're connecting.
And so it's connecting. And so I was fortunate enough to do a forest walk with an elder in Canada in 2017, which was a catalytic year for me. And this woman, we walked around the forest and she would literally say, this is good for that. This is good for that. And then we would collect all these different herbs and all these different plants. And we went back to her house and made a salve. So now we're making a salve with stuff that we've gathered from the forest. We're putting in our body. And so each time you put it on your body, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. This is, mulleine's good for this and coffee's good for this. And the thing that she shared with me the most is connection, right? So we have the opportunity, our lives are very busy, they're crazy. We have the opportunity to take a moment and look at whatever you're ingesting and bring into your body and asking yourself, do I know where this came from? Or, and bring it and kind of welcoming it and acknowledging it. And so the thing about the algae is, now that we have the videos to show people where it comes from, the people that are making it, when you take the algae, you can think back and be like, wow, okay, now I feel part of it. I feel more part of it. Or when you salute the sun with it, you're like absorbing, the light's absorbing into the algae, just like, in its natural environment. So connection is a huge thing, and connecting to your food and your environment is a huge one.
And mindfulness is something I talk about. And in fact, in this book, my second book I'm working on, that's a heavy topic of, because the first one was about purpose through pain. This is more about finding joy, even through all the trauma, the hardship, the pain, the crap storms of life. But being more mindful, I mean, that's speaking my language, from a physical standpoint in my gym and people that I'm working with that have areas of pain and discomfort, finding pain-free ranges of motion and movement and all that. But there's such a disconnect with people even in their own bodies, this thing they live in every day. They're more connected to the electronic devices or, things that can
the stock
be
market,
their car, the house, whatever. And we're all guilty of this. This is no judgment. This is just fact. And I'm guilty of it at times too. But when you have that awareness, when you have that connection, I'll give you a personal story. Here's something. I grew up in a house, eat your food fast. And then it followed up. I worked in restaurants where you had to eat your food fast to go serve a table, wait, bartend. So it became a habit. And I've really had to work, and I'm still a work in progress, of being more mindful of my eating. But I'll tell you this, the more I have slowed down to eat, so for example, this is what I do. There's so many different ways. People are like, chew it till it's mush, count to 30. That's too complicated. I'm like, just pick a food up, put your fork down, spoon, whatever, and chew the bite and enjoy it. If you're having conversation, have a conversation. Like the French do, they take an hour or so to eat. They eat. And if you don't have that and you're eating by yourself, same idea. Practice that. But I'll tell you this, my food tastes better. I'm not sluggish because it didn't come into my body so fast afterwards. I feel the energy from the food. It doesn't bother my gut, so I'm not gassy if you're dealing with that kind of stuff. It's a kind of an enjoyable process. So with anything like movement, be connected to the movements of your body, slow things down. I put a video on YouTube about it, and then speed things up when you feel good. You know that I recently took up ice hockey within the last year. This guy's a skater too. That's not why I brought him in. I'm not biased. He's just a cool dude, as you can hear. But I slowed things down, and now I'm speeding things up because I wanted to connect my head to the fascial tissue, to the body. But he's talking about all these things with humans being more connected to one another. Another topic that I talk about regularly, and even in my book, we're so disconnected. We don't even know our own neighbors half the time. And we're all one just human race, man. And we can find more together and being united. I know this is a bigger, broader story, but he's talking about a very important thing that really is about striving. When we're looking out for our neighbor, he said it earlier, he's helping people thrive. If we're finding ways, even in just, you say your neighbor's sick, but if you don't even know your neighbor's sick, how can you go help pick up their kids or even trusted to pick up their kids or getting their mail and these little things, and they'll return the favor. And anytime I've done something for people, most times they've returned the favor. In fact, I had somebody on this podcast a few weeks ago, and I didn't expect them to return the favor. They returned the favor just because they felt like it in a really cool way. And the more we can do that and create that cyclical connection and realize we're all the energy system together, from planet Earth to humans to everything, boom. So not to go on a passionate tangent there, but if we can just slow down for a second and be more mindful of the interconnectedness of the human race, the nature of it all, that's going to help us all strive. And then when we're connected, we're working better on our mental health, our personal development, our natural health, our physical health, because we're thriving and striving off the good energy that is in and around us, and that we're also giving off and receiving. So sorry, take your stage there for a minute.
Exactly. No, it's fine. It's actually, it adds to the conversation of people are disconnected to their own bodies, and they don't know they don't feel their bodies. Mm-mm. So that's why these practices, like you mentioned about ice baths, is you could take the strongest athlete, or you could take somebody who is never exercised in their life, and they're all going to be in the same environment, and it's their own internal environment that's going to be different. Yeah. And so you cannot outmuscle an ice bath. In fact, it's actually detrimental. It's not going to be as beneficial for you.
Oh, that's a great point.
But the person that can gently absorb the environment and relax into the environment and breathe through the environment is going to be the one that's going to be able to adapt better. And I think the conversation should be more about our ability to adapt more as humans, and to adapt to our environments is a big one that a lot of people are missing, because, as you know, people like being comfortable, and when you have an opportunity to be uncomfortable, that's where the nuggets happen.
Yeah, and actually the last one I recorded here was a solo one where we talked about comfort through discomfort, and I mentioned the various things, and one of those things I mentioned was ice baths, and that's a good point that I actually didn't mention on it, so I'm glad we're mentioning it here, because it was, I do some breathing beforehand. Everyone asked Wim Hof. I was like, no, I just breathe for like a minute, and I exhale as I get into the cold bath, and I'm just more mindful. And it's a cool feeling that's hard to describe unless you can get to this experience where I feel just connected to the cold water. I don't feel it cold. I don't feel discomfort. I just feel like it sounds really weird, and like people are like, are you high? No, like I just feel really connected to, like, it feels like it's a part of me, and it's easier, and then I can just breathe. I can think about things. I'm very productive after these things. This I did mention on the podcast. After ice baths and after my acupuncture mat in the midday, I have some of my most productive days. And it's like a little bit of discomfort that gets me to really just be mindful and be connected to these things. This Shakti mat, I have this thing that has a pillow too. It's got these needles. I fell asleep on it an hour on Saturday. My intent was a 20-minute thought process meditation. I ended up passing out, and like, how is this crazy guy passing out on it? Because I was so connected to it. And I found relaxation and de-stress from it. And I popped up, not groggy like I would from a normal nap on a couch. I woke up energized and productive and in a very positive mood. That's my favorite thing about cold plunging and some of these things that I do is just like, not only am I more energy, I'm like a positive, calm energy. And that's huge for me. A positive, calm energy instead of this like ADD, highly caffeinated, energy. So, and I believe a lot of these tools are helping. So,
yeah, I mean, the ice bath, they release dopamine, right? So then you're getting a mood boosting benefits from the ice bath because your body's, absorbing these different endorphins and adrenaline and dopamine. And so the ice bath is an amazing tool. It's a great tool. And one of the things I started playing around with is these gravity boards where you stand on them. They have little copper nails, and they actually, the nails are not just like, they're not solid. They have a little bit of give. So you have to absorb, you have to adapt to the nails. And if you tense up, then it's going to hurt. And again, it goes down to how well you can adapt to that environment. If you're a big, strong guy and you have tender feet, you're going to struggle. and you're going to try to tense through it, and you're going to be like, ow, it's piercing through my feet. It's like, these nails are not pierced through your feet because they're designed a certain way.
Yeah, and
it's
that's kind of like my back.
Absorbing it. Yeah, it sounds exactly like your mat. 100%.
Yeah. When you were talking about it, it reminded me of this retreat. I went to a small little thing at the beginning of December, and there was a chef there. And this made me more connected to the food we were eating there. And he would tell like the nutrients in the foods we were eating, and even if it pertained to it, some of the history of it, and why these foods paired well together, and what they did for you, and what the nutrients did from like gut health to whatever. And it was really cool to hear that, because like as you're eating it, you're thinking about, man, this is what I'm filling myself with. This is what it's going to do. And guess what? What you think is what you become. But it was so cool. And then at the last day, I started having like, I had this vision, and it was I was called on the spot by the guy that was running the retreat. He's like, Justin, I don't know where it came from, but it was really cool. He's like, Justin, I want you to go around, because you seem to have this unique ability to view people's future. And I was like, I do? I didn't know I did, but apparently I was doing it all weekend. And I was like, I want you to go around this table of everyone that was left of the retreat and envision. And one of the things I envisioned for that chef was I literally, it was lucid. I closed my eyes for a minute, meditated for like literally less than a minute. And then I opened up and I went to him, and I was like, I see you teaching and educating chefs and having restaurants like this where people are educated on the food. It's delicious. Let me chow it down. And it's like, that's funny you mentioned that, because I literally had that written down as one of my goals this weekend, to form a school and educate other chefs in the world. And I was like, well,
nice.
It's just one of these cool things that and it goes back to the connection. That's partially the reason why I brought it up. I wanted to bring it up, that these things are out there, these stories, and being more connected and mindful. But also when you start to get connected with people, what you can pull out of them or even out of yourself. And it's really, really cool. So thanks for sharing all that, man.
Absolutely. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the retreats, because I did spend some time in that retreat setting. And one of the things I noticed is I just love being a part of the whole environment, how people have an opportunity to re-identify themselves. You're no longer Justin the dad. You're Justin, I get to actually meet Justin, because in your world, you're Justin the dad, you're Justin hockey dad. So we go to a retreat, you're Justin, and I get to see who Justin really is. And in the first couple of days, Justin the dad and everything shows up, and then he's the leader of that story. But as the retreat goes on, Justin, the individual, the spiritual being comes out, and actually you get to see who that person really is, because the environment is taken care of. They no longer have to worry about what they're eating. They don't have to worry about anything. Everything's taken care of for them, and they have an opportunity to fully be present in the moment. And another thing I like to share too is the shifts to happen. And you mentioned like your 20-minute low power nap. That's all people need. And I think people are lacking is these little shifts throughout the day. Like, life can become a program and we have to do these things. You're a busy person, I understand, but you can take 5 minutes or 30 seconds and do a shift where you come back to that next part of your day and you have an opportunity to have a different outlook on that day. We have control over that. We don't have to continue to let the days take over us. Which is a big thing that I think people don't realize they have that power.
Yeah, we have power to make our days, break our days. And, I'll share this as far as our words and how important that is pertaining to that. Our words do matter. And when you say I have to versus I get to, and I know it doesn't apply to every circumstances, but I'll give you an example. I used to say I have to go pick up my son, or I have to take my son here. It's like, no, I get to. Totally changed my mindset and perspective. I made it from sounding like a chore to an opportunity to hang out with my kids. Simple shift, simple word change.
Yep.
And so same thing to what you're talking about there, I believe, because those little shifts, and these are little ways to help you strive and be careful of words and just be more mindful and before we talk sometimes. So, man.
But these shifts are something that we want to share with Saluz. So one of the things is anybody that becomes a customer, subscribing customer of ours, we want to be able to create these little shift or spark like videos of like, here's a quick breathing course that you can do if you're in traffic going to pick up your kid or whatever, you're stressed.
I'd love to help you out with that, because that's great.
Breathing. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Or here's a couple of movements you can do for your body to move your spine, to shift or to do some.
This is how.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. This is how you're different.
It doesn't have to be the whole program. It doesn't have to be the whole program. No. It doesn't have to be. You have to get the $20. Here's the whole program. It's like here's some information that we have access to every day. Let's just remind people that they have access to that.
And this is how,
and that's all it is.
All I'm saying, like, this is how he's different. This is why this is great. He's not trying to sell you on a supplement, because we already talked, it's not a supplement. He's not trying to sell you on something. He's trying to help you strive. If you happen to buy his product, cool, but he's also going to provide these videos. He wants to put things together and tell stories and share them and get people connected. And he's a world changer. That's what I'm going to call you, man, because that's what you're really striving to do, not only for others, but I've gotten so much even just from talking to you here, and I've known this guy, and we've talked about some of these things, but I'm learning things as we go. With that, I've talked about some of my success with it. Do you have some other? I'm sure you could share for days, and you shared some already, especially the pregnancy and the breastfeeding. Are there any other success stories you'd love to share, positive changes of health and well-being that people have come in contact with Saluz?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a video on our YouTube channel. So, we're really big on telling, so I want to just kind of preface, we want to tell healing stories. That's our marketing strategy, is healing stories. Because when other people can connect and embody and see them in somebody else, then they're going to be like more connected to that process of like, oh, well, if it works for them and they have something similar to me, then maybe that might help me. And that's what people are looking for in this day and age with health. I think in health information is hope. They're looking for that next bit of hope that maybe this is the missing piece that I'm lacking, or this is the newest product that I need. It's like, no, it's like, let's give your body what it needs. And then that magical pill is everything involved, right? It's going to be a process. And so we believe in 6 months, we can raise somebody's micronutrient levels from nutrient deficiency to nutrient sufficiency. And so we want to create a 6 months opportunity where people can join us, take our product for 6 months. In the process, we're going to be sharing a lot of the shifts that we talk about, or those sparks, whatever we're going to call them. And then at the end of 6 months, we take people on a retreat or have a big party and create a community around that.
Cool. Yeah, that's so cool.
That's where we get excited about doing and offering more value to all of our customers, continuing giving. If you're going to invest in your health with our products, we want to invest in you and to give you what you need to share your gifts. And that's literally what we're all about.
Yeah, and I have a few more questions before we wrap it here. We talk a lot about, I talk about it a lot too. Like, there's always challenges, and I think we can strive every day, but it's harder to strive with those challenges. So I'll give you a couple options to answer this, but what are some of the challenges you faced with maybe starting your company, and how did you overcome them, or other challenges maybe personally or professionally with that, and that you'd like to share, and how you were able to still strive in, around, and through possibly?
Yeah. Or do you want me to talk about the testimonial from the customer? I know I didn't talk about that.
Well, you did a little bit, but yeah, if you want to share that, and then we'll go into this next one real quick.
Sure. So, so we have my friend, actually, I did retreats with her. And so this is an amazing, powerful woman. She was a lifeguard, surfer, yoga teacher, photographer. We did a bunch of projects together. We taught like handstand workshops and did retreats and stuff. And so she's very, very active, and she maximizes every hour out of the day, and almost tiring to be around, but it's like inspiring. That's what it takes to kind of, to do what you want to do. And she's just all about passion.
Yeah.
And so she struggled with some health issues in that process. She actually had something called dengue, which is common in the tropics. It's usually a mosquito-borne disease.
How do you spell that?
And so dengue, I think it's DNGUE.
Yeah. Okay.
Dengue fever.
Check that out.
And so, yeah, it's mosquito borne. And so it affects the body, and literally it's like having the flu. And so you literally have like no energy to move. And so she had dengue fever, and then she had, what everybody had back in 2020. And so her body, this was all within like 6 months of each other. Wow. So her body was literally just in a deficient, negative state. And she messaged me, and she's like, hey, I'm just really struggling right now. I don't have the energy to even get out of my bed. I'm really hurting. I was like, well, you need to try our product. Like, let me send you some. Let me meet up with, your friend. Let me give you some products. And so she started taking our products. And then within a couple of weeks, she got out of bed, and she started to walk around. She started to move, and she started to, get back to being her again. And then within 4 weeks, she was back surfing again.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so she's a healthy person. And so she was doing the green powders and doing this, and she was taking all the things, but her body was lacking certain nutrients. I don't know which ones they were, but we gave her body the nutrients that it needed, boost the immune system.
200, right?
Yeah. Over 200.
Yeah.
It's like, and there's more nutrients in there we just haven't fully identified yet. That's the thing, is there's nutrients in there that actually protect your body from the UV rays from the sun. And so we're actually creating a skincare line. We have cosmetics coming down the pipeline that actually, this compound is called microsporin-like amino acids. The name's not important, but this is a compound. Again, the algae had to adapt into the environment because early on in the Earth's atmosphere, there was a high amount of radiation where there wasn't life available. And so the algae had to create these microsporin-like amino acids to protect its cells, so that way the radiation didn't damage the cells. And so we're able to extract those compounds and put them into skincare product. We're working with a company out of Japan. So we have some finished products, and we're just working on the branding right now. And so far, people love them. They're amazing. And so the world of skincare and like SPFs is very nasty and can be very toxic. And people think they're actually doing something good for their skin, but actually it's really bad. And so these compounds are actually going to protect. It's like an eclipse for your skin. It's an eclipse from the sun for your skin. And so yeah, then now that you're ingesting the algae every day, so you're ingesting these compounds, so you're actually able to, your skin is being protected from the harmful, heavy rays during the summertime of the UVB rays.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
So,
it made me think of the electrolyte stuff that you gave me recently, because I was just, something else that you gave me a little sample of, and I realized I did it during hockey, and I forgot to let you know. So I'll let you know now. Yeah, less fatigue and more endurance during it. So I noticed when I was
Isn't that crazy? I'm always a tinker. I'm always trying to put algae in everything.
Hockey's the most exhausting sport I've ever done in my life. Plus you're sweating a lot more, losing more electrolytes with all that gear on. So yeah.
I noticed that too. I hadn't played hockey in like 10 years. And, I played hockey for 20 years prior to that, and then moved to Mexico, and I just didn't play for 10 years because there's no ice in Mexico. Yeah. But I started playing again, and I was like so tired. And then it wasn't until I started taking the product and the electrolytes, and I was like, wow, I feel good. Like after a shift, I'm like, wow, I feel ready to go. And I was like, and my friends were like, what the heck have you been doing? You haven't played hockey in 10 years and you're like skating like this? Like, oh my gosh, so for me, it was pretty inspiring too.
It's incredible, the recovery and everything else. So yeah, man. So yeah,
we also have a probiotic product coming too for your gut. So we'll have probiotics, AFA, and then we have a botanical berry, adaptogenic berry blend that we're working on with our herbalist.
Yeah, I'm curious, because I was going to ask like later on, like at the end here, like what are some of the futures which you've been talking about? But that'll be interesting to see you to take that along with the FA. Because
going back to the challenges is like we have all these ideas, and so we've created these partnerships and these relationships, and I know what we need to bring that people need. We just don't have the money to do it, unfortunately. Like for instance, we're creating like a whole house protocol, right? So it's going to be the AFA algae, the AFN probiotics, the electrolytes. We're working on algae omega-3 oil. There's all sorts of things that we're working on that we just don't have the ability to do. And unfortunately, in this startup world, you have to kind of move from a state of lack and be like very strategic in what you're doing. And so I wish I had all the resources I could do, because then I would be able to create all these products. We'd be able to move a lot faster. But it's been really hard for me to be so creative and so much a visionary, but been so restricted by the bottom line of what we actually have and what we can actually do. And so that's been the biggest challenge, is not having the sufficient funds to do what we really want to do and to actually realize our vision. The vision's there and the pieces are together, and it's just about creating more awareness around the company and the product and who we are to make it happen. So it's actually, everything happens for a reason. It's actually perfect timing because, the brand is building, people are getting more excited about it. And so my job now is to make sure we don't run out of products for our customers. And
that's a good problem to have.
We won't have an issue with running out of the algae or the other products, but the packaging, right? So these are details that have just been holding us back, is the details, which to me is hard for me to do because I'm not a detail person, but I'm having to adapt to this environment of being more of a detail-oriented person, because that frees up Darren to create the videos that you see and the stories and to tell people and to educate and inspire people through the media that he can create. And so early on in our partnership, I realized that he is a creative genius and a visionary. And for him to look at a spreadsheet or him to be brought down by details, it's going to impact his ability to be creative. And so I had to take on all of that, sacrifice some of my creativity, and to make sure that we can continue to function. And so that way he can create the stories and create the media and create the inspiration around the company.
I'm smiling just because it's like, it sounds like you're overcoming these challenges by adapting, and your product is a great adaptogen. So in my mind, I had a cheesy like dad joke.
No, honestly, Darren and I, like every conversation, we're like, dude, if we didn't have AFA to take every day, I don't know how we could do this.
You can maximize your potential, I don't know how we could, and strive because of AFA, man.
I don't know how we could handle our ability to focus with these long hours and the ability to handle the stress of, what's being thrown at us right now. So we're grateful for all the products we have. We didn't even really touch on the other products like pine pollen and,
we're going to have you on again, man. Yeah. Cause I was going to talk about like functional mushrooms and what those are and some of the other things that you guys have. Cause you guys got a lot. I suggest go to the website, definitely go to this guy, but at the end, the way we end these is usually I ask, hey, is there anything else you left off that could help people strive every day? But with you, I want to ask it in a unique way. So with that, what advice do you have for people that you haven't talked about yet as far as helping them to strive every single day of the year and connecting them more with nature to improve their health and vitality, and why it's important?
Yeah, I would just say the biggest thing is to breathe fresh air. Breathe fresh air and watch the morning sun. Two simple things that you don't have to pay us $19.95 to go do. Literally, by you connecting to the sun and watching it rise over the mountains, you're connecting to the day. And so when you connect to the day, you're going to be able to be more present for your family, for your environment, for the work that you do, for the passion that you have, for whatever it is you want to share. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be ignited. So that way you can do it at a higher capacity. And breathing that oxygen into your lungs, you're going to be able to expand the lungs, and you're going to be able to move some energy around that may be stagnant from the night.
You'll get some pushback here on the East Coast. It was like, well, we don't have sun. We don't really. So what do you suggest for those people?
That's a good question. Honestly, I would just say do some breathing and move your body. Move your body. Find something that you love to do in the morning to move. It could be just rolling around the floor. It could be, going, I don't know, it could be anything. It can be, one of the things I've been doing a lot of recently is the ropes, because what it does is it's a continual pattern. You're doing a figure eight with your body. Yeah. And by doing a figure eight, it's continuous. So you're not creating any stagnant lines. You're moving the body through a fluid motion. Yeah, he's
talking about like the RMT rope. So yeah. In case you're not jump roping, it looks like a jump rope, but yeah.
We're not jump roping, no, because by jump roping, some people just can't do jump rope. If they come from off the couch and they don't have the joints aren't sufficient for that. It doesn't make sense for them to jump rope, but they can still get a lot of benefits for their brain and their body and just move in the morning without jumping the rope. And the thing about the rope is you're connecting your right hemispheres and left hemispheres every time you cross your hands.
Yeah, that's really important.
Over and over. So for hockey, this has been amazing for moving the body, and weight transfer, which is hockey's all about weight transfer.
Hockey can make you smarter.
Hockey can make you smarter.
I will say on the the one thing I will add, it's hard because of the temperature and the weather, especially when we're getting like 12 inches of snow, but you still can get sunlight even though it's overcast, but you just got to stay out like twice as long. Like if it's 10 minutes, I believe, then it's like 20 to 30 minutes if you can't catch a sunrise. And I know you're not going to go out in swim shorts, but any exposure of sun, even if it's just your head and maybe your hands or something. And that's something I do. That's the free way. There is, if you wanted to, you can mimic it with like red light therapies, and there are tools out there, and I have links on mine. But we're definitely gonna have you on here because I do want to talk about more things, man. This has been amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up here, though?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share, our story and share Saluz with your community, your gym community, and then now your viewership. And I'm really happy to hear that it's helping you out and giving you value, and helping you thrive and strive to be a better father and a better husband and just a better overall human being,
Most definitely. And that's what we're here for. That's why we have this podcast to help people strive every day in simple ways, free ways, maybe some pay or products or something like that. But there's always ways, and we just want to help the world, just like it sounds like you're doing as well. Man, we'll put his links below. Also the website, and that code is Justin20 for 20% off your first order. I'll throw that in the show notes as well. But thanks for tuning in. If you found value, you found value. I'm not going to say if you found value. And the people that that will find value in this podcast, please like, share, and comment, because you're helping that small part. That's one small way you can help the world. And remember, we're on YouTube if you're watching it. We're on iTunes. We're on all media platforms. So thanks for tuning in for another episode of Strive 365. Take care.